Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new I Don't Work Here Lady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The next one is titled, I'm not security, I'm a federal supervisor. Just for some background, I am a sergeant in the Australian Federal Police, but I work in Cybercrime Task Force, and our uniforms are quite distinct. With holding the rank of sergeant, it's quite clear to see the 3 chevron on my vest slide. Anyways, now to the story. This happened 2 weeks ago while I was out shopping. I was in my uniform coming home from the local station, and I got a call from my mate who lives in my house, that we're low on milk and have no cigarettes, so I said, no worries mate, I can pick some up. I'm on my way home anyways. He gave me a sigh of relief and thanked me. I don't generally expect people to pay me back, so I didn't ask him to pay. Anyways, I arrived at the shopping center and went to grab some milk. That was fine. When I was on my way to the tobacconist, I can hear that stereotypical screeching that your friendly neighborhood Karen does. She comes running up to me and says, are you going to help me or not? I've been calling for security for the past 5 minutes and no one has come. I simply just replied with, ma'am, I'm unsure if you realize, but my uniform. I get cut off. You have to help. It's your job. Come immediately or I will call your supervisor. I basically gave up at this point and decided to follow her to see what the issue was. As I was following her, I see 2 security guards shaking their head as if to say, don't bother, but I flashed my badge and gave the nod to say, I can handle it. So, she takes me to where the issue is, and it's a father with her daughter who had just bought some sushi from the stand outside of another shop. EK, these 2 dimwits tried to harass me and I need you to call the police. Me, why couldn't you just call the police if that was the case? You have a phone, do you not? EK, because that's not my job, that's your job. Ma'am, we've been nice to you this whole time, you've been yelling and screaming at my daughter for wanting to eat sushi. Now, keep in mind, his daughter is probably no older than 12 or 13. I don't see what's wrong with. EK cuts her off, you're eating food from the people that caused this corona BS. I had to cut in, because I myself love sushi, and know the sushi they serve here is from Japan and local resources. Me, ma'am, the sushi here is not Chinese sushi. Yes, they have Chinese workers, but you can't stereotype an entire race based on looks. EK, look Mr. Security Guard, I don't care what you think, I want you to deal with these mongrels immediately. I basically just sigh and had enough of her crap. Me, okay, enough of this. Ma'am, you can clearly see my uniform. I am not a security guard, those 2 are security guards, I point towards the ones I mentioned earlier. I am with the AFP and I don't deal with this form of stuff anyways because it's beyond my pay, and my division pushes my authority simply to cybercrime. Now, you can clearly see that you're making this young girl cry, and you are the one being a racist. You can either leave now, or I will call for someone else to come get you. EK, your division stops you from dealing with this? What a bunch of BS. You are a, what is that rank? He's a sergeant. EK, I didn't ask for your input, brat. At this point, she has taken enough of my time, and enough of theirs. I call the local station, state who I am, and request for someone in the local police to come down and deal with EK. Not even 5 minutes later, and the car arrives. EK, there, now we can have real police deal with this. Me, I don't know how many times you want me to tell you, I am not a security guard. I am a federal supervisor. Do you need me to go into more detail? This job should have been for the security guards initially, then they should have called the local police. I won't state which police due to privacy reasons. In comes the police officers. They thank me for taking over despite being off the clock, and having an 18-hour duty that day. They know my schedule and I know these officers. I gave them the information of the situation, until EK decides to slap D in the face, and spit on the officers. The officers put her in handcuffs, and as they're pulling her out, she yells at me, calling me fake security once again. In comes Senior Constable Hero, not his real name, but man was he awesome. School, ma'am, he is a sergeant for the Australian Federal Police. He even said to us, that he stated that multiple times. Now, his authority, being in the Cybercrime Task Force, is distinctly only cybercrime and not this situation. He went beyond his authority to deal with this, and I thank him for that. Because of his actions, I will be contacting his commanding officer, and not to put in a complaint, but a good word for dealing with someone like you while off duty. I nod to the officer and head back in to buy the cigarettes. Once I got home, I told my mate, and even showed him the Axon body cam footage of it all. Even 2 weeks later, we still laugh at how she acted. Now, I get this may not be the right subreddit for this, but I'm assuming it is based on the fact that she confused me for a security guard despite telling her otherwise multiple times. Anyways, I hope you had a great read and laugh as much as my mate and I did. The next one is titled, First Mistake, Red Shirt in Target. Note, this happened when I was 18. I'm a girl, 5 feet tall, and, since age 16, have always carried a pocket knife with a sort of trigger just for my peace of mind. Also, I've got a huge thing about physical contact and do not like even family, friends initiating any sort of hug, pat on the back, etc., without asking. I was in Target for the first time and I was by myself. Sort of just checking it out because we'd always been too thrifty to go to Target growing up. I was minding my own business strolling the aisles with my basket of slightly overpriced herbal tea. I end up in this cool snack section where they had seaweed packets and tossed 2 into my basket when I realized there was a man, mid-30s, early 40s, that I've seen in the same aisles as me quite a few times. No big deal, it's just a coincidence, right? I peruse a couple more sections in the store and eventually end up past the baby, kids section and see the same middle-aged guy sort of hanging back from me, but he's following me with more intent at this point. Getting a little nervous, but it's not like anything is gonna happen to me in Target. What's he gonna do? Kidnap me in the middle of a Target with hundreds of people in it? I keep going and eventually, I see the kitchenware section. I stop and look up at the signs to see where exactly I want to look around. Ah. There. I take a step forward and, just as I do, the same man from earlier grabs me by my shirt collar and says, "Excuse me," and without hesitation, I grab my side, deploy my knife, point it at him, and yell back, "What the F do you think you're doing?" We're right outside an aisle and there are people around who saw him grab me. He looks shocked, jaw slacked and everything. I repeat to him again just as loud and just as expletive-filled, "Who the F do you think you are? Why are you following me? Why did you grab me?" He snaps out of it a bit and says, "Are employees even allowed to carry knives? What the hell are you doing? Where's your supervisor?" Now, it's my turn to look dumbfounded. I said, "I'm not an employee, and even if I was, do you really just grab people wherever you go? Especially younger women?" At this point, we've got a small crowd and I feel safe enough to put my knife back in my pocket. He spits back, "Well, if you had been paying any attention, you'd know that I've been around you this whole time trying to get your attention, but you just keep walking off from me. Aren't you supposed to help people in the store? Did you hear a word I said? I don't work here." He took a step forward to look down at me and started on about, "All you had to do was say so then. Instead, you pull a knife on me like some psycho B." He then points out that I'm wearing a red shirt. I'm floored at this. I'm wearing a dark red and plaid long-sleeve harness crop top and black high-waisted jeans. What Target employee do you see wearing a plaid crop top? Finally, someone steps in to help. A tall, burly guy who looked like Duck Dynasty met Sons of Anarchy gets in between us and pushes the guy back and tells him that's no way to speak to anyone and says, "I saw the whole thing. You grabbed her by her collar. She has every right to be defensive." At this, Creep backed off and Ducks of Anarchy, my hero, tells him to F off. He fires off one last, crazy bee, but walks off towards the back of the store. I sincerely thanked Mr. Hero as I was truly grateful. Being a smaller person, even with a knife, you don't feel all that threatening. I took my ass straight to the checkout and left. Never in my life have I thought about grabbing a stranger, employee of a store or otherwise, to get their attention. I wouldn't even tap on their shoulder. If you just say, "Excuse me," or, "Hey," you're likely to get the attention of everyone in the immediate area. Maybe I was just raised differently, but I feel like not grabbing strangers is a pretty obvious social no-no. Another note, yes, I know it's a bit paranoid to carry a knife everywhere, especially into a Target of all places. I also know I could have handled this very public situation without taking my knife out, but when fear kicks in, instinct takes over. I wouldn't say I regret how I handled myself, but that's just evidently psycho, crazy me. The next one is titled, Consulting Undercover. As my username might suggest, I'm working in consulting. In earlier days, I used to consult in process improvement and productivity increase, and in this little gem from my past I got hired to do this for a high-class clothes shop chain, and since their main office was on top of one of their flagship stores, this is where I went. I quickly noticed, to my amusement, that the people working there had the same style of suit that I wore, which helps to explain what followed, but doesn't make it any less comical. I enter the store and am about to figure out just who might be able to point me at the officers when I suddenly got yanked at my arm by a lady, demanding to see something. I honestly forgot what it was. Of course, not having a clue because, and this is why this story fits into this subreddit, I didn't work there. I tried to explain it to her, only for her to demand management, which got us into this trilogue with her, me and a very well-dressed man who was some sort of floor manager. Woman, this man doesn't want to help me. Me, I. Floor manager, what? Why don't you help that woman? Me, because I. FM, help her. Me, but I. FM, what part of help her was too complicated? Me, listen, I. FM, you will help that woman now. Me, who are you? FM, getting louder, your boss. Now, I'm not dense and I considered it highly unlikely at this point in time that he was the management person I was supposed to meet, but then again, I was a bit early and who am I to question the floor god? So I helped that woman as well as I could. We even found what she was looking for, which led me to rethink my strategy for this consulting job. I went into the staff area where two were already standing and smoking, which was still allowed back then. Staff 1, first day? Me, kinda, yeah. 1, and already on His Highness bad list? I got a fair lot of inside information from those two very nice girls, most likely more than I could have gotten if I had done the usual consulting interview. I spent the next hour helping customers and having small talk with the other staff, getting a lot of insight into the company. I was just talking to one of the two girls from earlier when a new man arrived at the scene. Man, there's some consultant supposed to come today, does anyone know where he is? Me, yes, sir. Man, where is he? Me, handing him my card, that would be me. I explained the events that led to me working as floor staff, which in turn led to the floor manager being summoned, and yes, summoned is a pretty aptly chosen word here. It sure felt like that man barked a spell and this manager materialized out of thin air. The color scheme of his face was quite a sight to behold as he had to explain why he thought using a rather expensive consultant as fitting staff was a smart idea, or why he thought he had that power anyway. In the end, I did bill that hour. Not out of spite but because I learned more about the problems the company had in that hour undercover than I did in the rest of the consulting time I spent there. The company was very pleased with the results. As was the floor staff. Later I learned they got a new floor manager. The next one is titled, Literally Pulled an I don't work here on a coworker. This definitely isn't the most interesting story, but I hope some people at least get a kick out of this. So to give a little backstory, I work in a hotel that is located behind another hotel owned by the same person. The owner has a friend that used to work at both hotels for 10 plus years but was let go last year due to not actually doing any work while on his shift. Recently, due to the pandemic and the loss of a few staff members, the friend came back to help out with both hotels for the last 2 to 3 months. Still has the same habits as before, still not doing his work, but hey, at least I'm not pulling doubles. So about a week ago, he called me from the other hotel in front of the hotel I work at and asked for help about a billing issue, 5 minutes before my shift was over. I walked all the way over to the other hotel and saw there was no issue and tried to leave, but he kept me there to ask questions that, admittedly, he should have known a long time ago, seeing as he rejoined 3 months ago and had 10 plus years of experience. In the middle of his questions, the hotel phone starts ringing and he looks straight at me and says, "Can you pick it up?" I gave him the most dead-ass look and had to say, "I'm sorry, I don't work here." Honestly, I have no idea what was going through his head when he asked me to pick up the phone, because I literally don't work there and know nothing about the other hotel. We do use generally the same reservation system, but the rooms and even the format is different. The next one is titled, Old Lady Didn't Understand Who I Was. Nothing too exciting, but here we go. I was shopping at the place you can guess, Wally World, a few days ago. I had just gotten off work from X-Burger fast food place and had a tad bit of time to spare, so I swung in to do some browsing and grab a few essentials. I stopped in the pet department and called my sister. They had a whole bunch of doggy Halloween costumes out and we were discussing which ones would look good on which pet and if it was worth the price, etc. While talking to my sister, a lady who looked slightly familiar had pushed her cart up to me and was just standing there, staring at me. It took me a moment to notice, but whe I did. She proceeded to ask me if this was how all employees acted on the clock. I was confused. I was off the clock, in another store, of a different variety, on the phone. What could she mean? Our uniform don't even look similar. I'm in black kitchen shoes, nice black slacks, a X-Bugger manager shirt, and name tag that says X-Bugger manager on it. I just said, "Excuse me." This lady went off on how employees here are known for goofing off and ignoring customers and how I needed to do the job I was being paid for. I said, "Hun, I don't work here." "Of course you do. I've seen you before." The tone of her voice she used suddenly clicked. I've heard her voice through the headsets at my job placing her order a few times a week. Always the same thing. "Yes. You come to my work a few times a week, but not here." "Well, I see you here now." "Yes, hun, because I'm off work shopping, so you do work here." "Why did you say you didn't?" "Because I don't, my dear. I'm a manager at X-Bugger. You see me there. I am here shopping because I am off the clock." She looked at me with all the confusion in the world, like she was thinking very hard, trying to put the pieces together. Finally it clicked and she started laughing, saying he old mind was just playing trick and wished me a good day before strolling off. I just stood there, a little perplexed, while listening to my sister buzzing up laughing on the other side of the phone. The next one is titled, "He's Not a Doctor." Yes, he is. I saw him on TV. Not quite sure this fits, but wasn't sure where else it would. So I've had a friend since college who's a great guy. I love him to pieces, but I've occasionally considered ending the friendship because his wife is so jarringly dumb. For the life of me I do not know what he gets from her. Okay, I do, she's one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in real life. But even still, I don't know how he does it. She's sweet, she means well, but there are sandwiches more intellectually stimulating. A while back I had a friend visiting Camden, and she was dropping her kids by to hang out with mine. I invited her to stay for a bite to eat because yes, she's exquisitely dumb, but she's perfectly friendly. Camden's been trying to break into acting and he recently had a bit part on a TV medical drama. So I brought it up, saying, "Camden just recently had a small role as a doctor on this show." She went, "Ah, that's so exciting. Congratulations. That must not be easy, to get a job there. So, what kind of doctor are you?" And he explained, "Oh, it was a very minor role, I didn't get a specialty or anything, I didn't even get a name." And she laughed and went, "Well, we all feel that way when we first start, regardless of what job. Just keep working hard, and you'll get all that stuff over time. But don't sell yourself short. It's not easy to be a doctor." And he took the compliment and went into how he went about playing the role, the body language he tried to adopt for the intensive care unit, that sort of stuff. Then she cut him off and went, "Actually, you know what, if you wouldn't mind, my son has actually had this oblong cyst developing on the small of his back for a couple weeks now. I'd really appreciate if you could take a look." So we both laughed, thinking she was joking, and I was impressed with her uncharacteristically high-level joke. But then she actually started to call her son over. It's just like her to start a funny joke and then take it way too far. Camden, confused and weirded out by the whole thing, started saying, "Oh, no, hey, they didn't teach us any medical stuff for the part. I can't, help you with this." I jumped in and changed the subject, but she left shortly after. I'd long since given up on trying to explain to her why some jokes are funny and others are not, so I thought I'd let it be, even though she seemed kind of miffed when she left. Later she came back to pick her kids up, and by then Camden had gone home. As she was leaving she remarked, "You know, it was very rude of your friend not to at least look at my son's cyst. It would have taken him, 10 seconds. I hate how doctors think they're above helping anyone unless they're getting a check. Didn't they take an oath to always help anyone who needs medical advice or something?" So, as I processed the pure bitterness in her voice, I realized she genuinely and truly thought Camden was a medical doctor. So, convinced I must be misunderstanding her, I further reiterated, No, he's an actor. He played a doctor. On that show. You've seen the show. It's not a small production, it's like Grey's Anatomy or House, everyone knows of it. And, even angrier now, she said, "Of course I have, I know all about it. It's one of the best hospitals in the country, why do you think they put it on TV?" Being in the spotlight like that, you'd think he'd try and be a little more professional with people. That's all I'm saying. The surreal mix of entitlement and delusion in her statement left me dumbstruck, and I decided I must be misinterpreting this somehow, because there was no way any grown adult who votes, drives, works, and has kids of her own is that stupid, not even her, so I just let her leave rather than risk offending her or embarrassing myself. As soon as she was gone, I called my friend, her husband, to try and catch him before she was home. I relayed the whole series of events to him, and his response: "Oh, that. Yeah, it's a problem. But it's not entirely her fault." Oftentimes those shows use stories ripped from the headlines of the actual news, you know? So you can see why she gets mixed up sometimes. She bumped into Camden at my anniversary party not too long later and asked him, with genuine concern, if a character on the show who'd been in an accident, again, on the show, was recovering well. He tried telling her in plainer terms, "I don't work there. I'm not a doctor. I just played one that one time." And she said she was so sorry to hear he'd been let go, and where was he working now? So, if you wonder how our country ended up where we are, know that she has a bachelor's degree from an accredited college and holds a job with several subordinates and partial responsibility over our city's water supply. So, advocate for education reform whenever you can, and enjoy these twilight years of the great American experiment. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy my content, please post some bear emojis in the comments and subscribe.